Yu Jin recalls how Yu Yun was still small and sweet as a baby brother. Back then, Yu Yun would run up to Yu Jin and hug him tight. Yu Yun even takes care of Yu Jin even though he is the younger brother. Yu Yun is the type who always has a ready smile for his older brother. He loves Yu Jin to the point that he even tells him that he'll go to med school so that Yu Jin wouldn't have to work for another day in his life. Now, I really want Yu Yun to be my brother. Yu Jin shares with everyone in the conference room that regardless of how busy he is, Yu Yun managed to grow up as a kind, upstanding, and gentle young man. Yu Yun is the perfect definition of a docile sibling that anyone would want. Ming bams his fist to the table, and everyone tries to hold on to their laughter. They could not do so, and they all laughed at how ridiculous those words were from Yu Jin. Yu Jin was confused and asked if he had said something wrong. A guildmaster comments how Yu Yun is acting polite today, and it's all because of his Yun's presence in the meeting. Yu Jin sees that the guildmaster of Xijiang Guild, Hyunjae, is starting to crack up, which is different from how Yu Jin perceived him as someone all serious. So what if Yu Yun is only good in front of his brother? This only shows how much affection he has for his Yun. Hyuna points at Yu Yun and cackles, as she tells everyone how Yu Yun is acting all coy in front of his brother. This pisses Yu Jin a bit. He tells her off and argues they can't bully his younger brother. This only makes Hyuna laugh some more. Even the chairman of the Hunters Association is amazed at how close the two are. At the same time, Mingu is still laughing so hard, and comments on how the chairman still has tears from laughing too hard. They are really enjoying this. Hyuna tries to smooth things over and hands Yu Jin a document so that they can finish the deal. Yu Jin was still irritated, but he kept his thoughts to himself. He knows that his brother is a wonderful young man, even though Yu Yun can't be nice all the time since he has been a guild master from a young age. This is precisely why your little bro loves you, because you are so understanding and love him unconditionally. Hyuna continues with the meeting, explaining how they had settled most things between the guilds before Yu Jin and Yu Yun even arrived. She tells Yu Jin to look at the document to let them know if he needs anything else. Yu Jin looks at the documents and asks about the statement about him owning a building. Hyuna asks if Shimyang didn't tell Yu Jin about it. The chairman explains that Yu Jin will require a facility to breed the creatures, so they decided to have a new building for that purpose, with Yu Jin as its owner. Hearing about it, Yu Jin was deeply thankful for having Shimyang negotiate this for him. Shimyang is the definition of a great ally. At its essence, the agreement states the 5 guilds present will ensure the security of Yu Jin Han and his building. Yu Jin will prioritize breeding creatures for the 5 guilds. The construction of the facility is a joint venture funded by 4 of the 5 guilds other than Han, and the building will be under the ownership of Yu Jin Han. That is one fantastic deal. Maybe I should sign up to become Yu Jin's PA or something. Yu Yun tells his brother they only need Yu Jin's signature as he hands him a document. Yu Jin can't help himself from smiling, but he still tries to suppress it. Yu Yun was confused by the look on his brother's face, and Yu Jin said it was the nerves, while thinking how blessed he was to have a building in the heart of Seoul. Things are really looking up for Yu Jin. Yu Jin still thinks he is a shrimp amongst whales, but he is one happy shrimp who can handle that pressure. To have him in his own building protected by the top 5 guilds in the country is a big win. Yu Jin is already planning to have Myung Woo and Dr. Siak join him in the building by setting up a workshop and office. Yu Jin imagines how he'll be interviewed as the guy who turned Zero into a rich and handsome hero. While raising a glass of wine, he'll claim that there's no secret, since he just happened to drive the best customers in the world. And, of course, Peace would be there around his neck, making Yu Jin look cool. He really likes to daydream. In real life, Peace is licking Yu Jin's raised hand, as he imagines how he wouldn't have to work for another day in his life. If Yu Jin could lease the building, he'll be set for life. Hyuna pats Yu Jin out of his imagination. She bids her farewell to Yu Jin and thanks him for the laugh. Yu Jin was still out of it, and he unknowingly told Hyuna it was his pleasure. Yeah, he forgot that the laughter was about Yu Yun. Hyunjae chuckles and says he'll keep the promise of Yu Jin's exception in mind and see Yu Jin around. Yu Jin was uncertain, but he still said okay. Hyunjae was referring to how Yu Jin said he would join his brother's guild if Haein became the best in the country. But the condition for the other top guilds of Korea is to become the best in the world. Yu Yun goes to Yu Jin, and Yu Jin apologizes for spacing out at the end. Yu Yun avoids eye contact, saying his young shouldn't pay attention to what the other guilds say about him. He defends himself, saying he hasn't done anything that would sit well with his conscience. Yu Jin pats Yu Yun on the back, reassuring him that he knows how Yu Yun has to get his hands dirty sometimes as a guild master. As I said, Yujin is understanding. Yujin then compliments Peace for being good and calm in his arms, making Peace purr. Yujin thinks about how everything went well and how life is so beautiful at that moment. Back at the dorms, a wide spread of delicious-looking food is served. Yujin asks if it is someone's birthday, but Myung-woo says he wants to feed Yujin well. Yujin thanks Myung-woo for the food, and he is happy that the food is as delicious as how his life will be in the future. He really is set for life. He even gets to enjoy delicious food every day. Yujin eats and asks if Myung-woo has a lot of stuff in the dorms. Myung-woo says he does and asks why Yujin is asking. Yujin says that Myung-woo should be prepared to pack up and leave soon. Myung-woo was shocked by Yujin's words, and he started breaking down before Yujin even managed to explain why. Like a woman who has been suddenly rejected, Myung-woo drops to the floor. Myung-woo cries his heart out and claims that Yujin is finally kicking him out, making Yujin spit some of his food out of shock. Yujin stands up and asks what Myung-woo means by that. Myung-woo says he knew how this would happen someday because he is only a useless F-ranker. Yujin tells Myung-woo not to say such things since Yujin himself is an F-ranker. Myung-woo answers that though they are of the same rank, Yujin is nothing the same. Myung-woo recalls how Yujin was brave and genius, and for a guy like him who didn't even get a level 10 skill, Myung-woo keeps on crying. Myung-woo really shouldn't compare himself to others. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. In Myung-woo's case, his strength hasn't manifested yet. Yujin tries to cheer Myung-woo, but Myung-woo claims he's a lost cause. He says that Yujin is correct. It is time for him to leave. And then he thanks Yujin for everything. These words make Yujin panic, and he grabs Myung-woo's clothes. Keep him there, Yujin. Even if you must destroy his clothes. Yujin asks where Myung-woo will go, while Myung-woo says he can't waste any more of Yujin's precious time on him. Yujin yells that it's not a waste of time. He thinks about how Myung-woo has to sharpen 10,000 blades to gain the SS rank skill, and how Myung-woo is vital for Yujin's plan to retire young and rich. Yujin knew that Myung-woo wouldn't believe him if he said those words, and he couldn't reveal his skill's secret. Yujin changes tactics, saying he can't force Myung-woo to stay against his will. Yujin expresses how he has no idea that this is how Myung-woo feels. Myung-woo looks down and says it's okay. Yujin says it was too bad because he just came across information that could help Myung-woo while looking disappointed. Yeah, Yujin's acting again. Yujin tells Myung-woo not to mind him, since he can't just damp the information on Myung-woo if he doesn't want it. This got Myung-woo all curious, and he asked Yujin what it was. Yujin continues to act like he is pondering, letting Myung-woo know that there's a secret that he wants to share with his buddy. Myung-woo doesn't wish Yujin to be gloomy and asked about it. Way to guilt someone. Yujin says he might as well say it before Myung-woo leaves. Yujin makes up a story about how he heard from Dr. Siak that there's a training method to help unlock a particular skill. Yujin thinks the best way to make someone believe you is to quote someone brilliant or famous. Yes, we're learning from you. Deep inside, Yujin apologizes to Dr. White for using her name and swears he'll make up for it. In the dark R&D lab of Dr. Hye-yan Siak, Hye-yan is still working. She stretches, relieved that she's done with the paperwork, and all she has to do is wait for their response. Hye-yan looks at her computer, unaware that something is lingering in the shadows. A shadow of a face with unkempt hair then appears. Is the genre returning to horror now? A couple of knives clatter as Yujin announces, this is the perfect training for Myung-woo. He makes Myung-woo swear not to tell it to anyone, not even Dr. Siak. Myung-woo accepts the condition and asks Yujin what he should do with all the kitchen knives. Yujin simply says it's homework, and we learn another lesson from Yujin on ensuring you won't get busted. Yujin instructs Myung-woo to use his supporting skills related to weapons in sharpening the knives. Myung-woo affirms and starts sliding a knife into the grindstone. A counter appears, indicating how many blades were sharpened by Myung-woo. Yujin explains how Myung-woo must repeatedly do the task to unlock a crafting skill and how it is a reliable source of income, making it an absolute gold mine. Myung-woo was shocked by this. Yujin raises a hand beside his mouth, saying that Myung-woo has to grind about 10,000 to unlock it. Myung-woo was really glad to hear that it was only 10,000. Dude, what are you so happy about? It's 10,000? Myung-woo claims that if he sharpens 100 knives daily, he'll be done in 100 days. Yujin was shocked and asked if that was what Myung-woo would only do all day. Myung-woo reassures Yujin that he is excellent at repetitive menial tasks like this. Raising a knife, Myung-woo says that he'll soon show Yujin Myung-woo smiles and promises to work his butt off to pay Yoo-jin back for everything. "You're a hard worker, Myung-woo." Yoo-jin is happy that he managed to secure one of his retirement plans. He thinks that now is the time to ensure the second one. Yoo-jin visits Hae-yan in her R&D lab inside the Hae-im Guild. Dr. Siak shows her enthusiasm in conversing with Yoo-jin. At the same time, Yoo-jin is already tired of talking with the doctor for hours. Yoo-jin apparently forgot that Hae-yan mentioned how she wanted to speak with him for 10 hours. The two are talking about dungeons and how no one really considered if there were rules behind them. Yoo-jin explains that his theory is more of a hunch with no data to back it up, since there aren't a lot of dungeons in Korea. Dr. Siak agrees and covers her mouth, feeling that she has somehow offended many people by saying that. They carry on with a discussion on how they would get meaningful data if they could investigate more dungeons. This makes Dr. Siak wonder if she should join an international team. This is where the problem lies. Yoo-jin realizes that this is precisely why the genius Dr. Hae-yan Siak went overseas in the future. He reflects on how the doctor and her team will discover the principle of dungeon formations 3 years from now. This discovery will make America gain royalties from the world. Yoo-jin tries to devise a way to make Dr. Siak stay in the country until she makes the discovery. Holding a tray with jelly, Hae-yan says she has prepared exactly for this. Yoo-jin sees that it is a buckwheat jelly. Hae-yan explains how buckwheat jelly and rice wine can attract a dakhaebi, aka Korean goblin, at night with a dark moon. Yoo-jin is confused and asks Dr. Siak about it. Is she trying to summon the goblin, Kim Shin? Shouldn't she blow a candle instead? Oh, sorry. I forgot that it only works for Euntak. Hae-yan talks about a famous hunter who teleports and dresses like a mischievous spirit from Korean folklore. This hunter is mysterious and has remained in the shadows, and no one really knows the gender or age of this hunter. People only knew that the dakhaebi's teleportation ability lets them teleport anywhere they want to save countless lives from dungeon breaks and disasters. This act makes the dakhaebi gain a reputation. At the same time, the dakhaebi's skill can be threatening to thugs who are up to no good. They can appear in their hideouts and subjugate every thug in a few moves and warn them. It is hard to catch them because of their teleportation skill and knows all kinds of secrets. This ability and knowledge ensure the dakhaebi's safety and freedom to travel anywhere while remaining independent. And we have another character with OP skills. Back to Hae-yan and Yoo-jin. Hae-yan even prepared some roasted buckwheat, and she figured that the dakhaebi was bound to know a lot about dungeons. She spreads the roasted buckwheat around and shares that she found a blog saying how dakhaebi loves buckwheat. This makes Yoo-jin question how reliable Dr. Siak's source is. I found a different source, and it says that dakhaebis love buckwheat jelly and like to play pranks. Hae-yan is so excited as she continues to spread roasted buckwheat, claiming she has a lot of questions for them. Yoo-jin tries to calm her down, saying that dakhaebi isn't an actual dakhaebi from the fairy tales, and suggests that the doctor should request help from the guild instead. Suddenly, the light in the lab turns off, making them question if it was a blackout or something. Yoo-jin opens his phone for light, and he sees that Dr. Siak is wholly rooted to the spot and starts to have a worried look on her face. She sees a bloodied masked figure with clawed hands standing right behind Yoo-jin. Yep, time to add the horror tag to this manhwa. Yoo-jin asks Dr. Siak what's wrong as the figure reaches a hand toward Yoo-jin. This makes Hae-yan scream so loud, while Yoo-jin looks back, only slightly shocked at the figure behind him. Hae-yan sadly faints, causing Yoo-jin to worry. Yoo-jin's fear resistance has been activated, and he relaxes as he thinks how ghosts don't exist and that what's before them is simply a show aiming to scare. With this thought process, Yoo-jin finally concludes who the culprit is. It was none other than dakhaebi. Fear resistance is really reliable to have. The lights in the lab turn back on, and dakhaebi appears, saying there's no need to be salty. The dakhaebi says he only swung by to make the lady's wish come true as he removed the scary mask. At this point of the story, we have no idea what dakhaebi's gender is, so we'll refer to it as a male. Dakhaebi asks if it was too much, claiming that he didn't know the lady would faint from it. He tries to make up with Yoo-jin, referring to Yoo-jin as a gentle friend. Yoo-jin focuses on the system before him, letting him know that the dakhaebi's name is Yoon-yoon, with B-rank stats for current and potential stats. Yoon-yoon has already unlocked some skills with one that is even S-rank. But this is not where Yoo-jin's focus lies. It is at the system notifying Yoo-jin that the target has not yet been influenced by the keywords. Realizing that a hunter who's free to roam around without being bound by any guild or country is precisely what Yoo-jin needs right now. Yoo-jin plans to influence dakhaebi as well. Utilizing Dakebi's skills will significantly help Dr. Heian Siak with her dungeon research. Yujin stands up as he concludes that this is the perfect chance. He smirks at him and claims that the Dakebi's pranks won't scare Yujin, so he better drop it. Yun is shocked by what Yujin said and says he saw Yujin trembling earlier. Yujin makes an excuse, saying it was only because he didn't see him coming. Like a kid, Dakebi hops around, claiming that he did scare Yujin and calls Yujin some names like scaredy cat, chicken, coward, etc. The Dakebi is really childlike. Yujin again says he wasn't scared and won't fall for such childish pranks, while Dakebi claims that those were classic moves. It won't work because our MC has a cheat in the form of fear resistance. Yujin thinks about how the folklore says that the Dakebi loves to prank to the point that they would put their lives on the line just to do so. Knowing this, Yujin proposes a wager to the Dakebi while thinking about how the Dakebi just met his match in Yujin. It is a devious plan for sure. Dr. Heian Siak is lying on the bed and suddenly wakes up, remembering the Dakebi. Yujin says that the Dakebi is already gone. Hien says the outfit was tacky, like it was something out of a coloring book. Seeing no response to his words, Yujin reassures Dr. Siak that the Dakebi is gone. The Dakebi would have responded with its childlike personality if it had been there. Heian sighs with relief simultaneously. She is sad that she didn't get to ask her questions. She tells how she has hit a wall in her research and figures out how the Dakebi would be able to help her. Yujin comforts Dr. Siak and says that he'll be able to help her with this. Hearing this excited Heian, thinking that Yujin agreed to come with her to grad school. Yujin calms her down and explains how he has a way to get more information that Dr. Siak needs. So what exactly happened before? Let's watch. The Dakebi expresses how much he loves a good wager and asks what the stakes are as he floats in the air in a lazy position. Yujin proposes a wager of whether the Dakebi can scare Yujin or not. If Yun wins, Yujin will serve the Dakebi for 3 years, and vice versa if Yujin won't get scared. Wow, our MC is such a cheat. The Dakebi laughs at this and claims an F-ranker like Yujin won't be able to win against an almighty Dakebi like him. The Dakebi then changes the stakes, saying that Yujin has to serve 20 years to match the 3 years of the Dakebi. He says it's only fair, and this already accounts for the fact that Yujin is the older brother of Heian's guildmaster. Yujin surmises how the Dakebi did his research well and created a contract for them to sign. The Dakebi becomes suspicious of how Yujin is rushing to a losing game and asks what Yujin is scheming. He says how unlikely it is for an F-ranker like Yujin to have a fancy skill and wonders if Yujin plans to outsmart him with items. At least he is not that foolish in just signing a contract. The Dakebi doesn't know that Yujin has the fear resistance skill, so as long as the Dakebi agrees, it's a sure win for Yujin. Knowing there is doubt in the Dakebi, Yujin chooses to improve his acting skills. He says that he is actually Yu's biggest fan while blushing. Yujin mentions how the Dakebi saved many people and finds the story of the Dakebi's pouch of secrets remarkable. Our MC is such an actor that he can even blush when necessary. Yujin scratches his head, saying that it would be amazing to win against the Dakebi. But at the same, if he loses, he'll get to work for the great Dakebi. Yujin says this with great enthusiasm. Yun becomes proud and laughs at how awesome he is while twirling in the air. I take back my word, he's still foolish. The Dakebi claims that he would have never agreed if Yujin begged to become his minion. Instead, Yujin intrigued the Dakebi by bringing up a wager and a contract. Yujin reminds the Dakebi that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a fighting chance. Admiring Yujin's spirit, the Dakebi finally agrees and says he'll try scaring Yujin 3 times in the next week. And if Yujin manages to stay calm in one of those 3 times, he'll make Yujin his right-hand man. I guess there will be another horrific scene in the future. Back to the present, Yujin can't say the exact details to Dr. Siak. Still, he will surely get the data necessary for the doctor to conduct her research without leaving the country. Yujin admits he is not book smart like the doctor. He can only hope that they can share the profits equally. That is, if Dr. Siak's research on dungeon formations bears fruit from the data Yujin provides. Yujin is really working hard to secure his second retirement plan. This got the doctor thinking, and she says that she appreciates it. But at the same time, there is no guarantee that she'll find anything. Yujin encourages Dr. Siak that she will be able to do so. This makes Heian blush, thinking that it's just flattery. Yujin says he's serious and tries to remember what the date is. Yujin then predicts the A-rank dungeon that will appear in Ichan. He starts betting that the dungeon will be full of slimes or a coastal setting. Heian is surprised by Yujin's prediction and how he came up with it. Yujin is making full use of his knowledge. Yujin, of course, can't say he came back from the future. Instead, he asks Dr. Siak to seriously consider his offer if it turns out right. He says that it may be outrageous, but he is confident in the potential of Dr. Siak's research. Yujin stands up and tells the doctor not to worry about the results. Instead, she should ask her uncle to bid for the management rights of that dungeon. Outside the room, Yujin reassures himself that he never gave anything away and everything will be fine. All that's left to do is to humor the Dakebi for a week. One night, an old granny slams on a window, asking if Yujin cares for an apple. Is she the witch from Snow White? Yujin ignores the Dakebi. With Peace in his arms, he pouts and says how Peace only eats meat like the good kitty he is. This marks the first attempt as a failure. In one scene, Yujin enters the house with a box while looking for Myung-woo. He says that he got more dull knives from a thrift store. Sadly, dark clawed hands appear on the floor and grab Yujin's leg. Yujin falls with a thud, while the Dakebi comments on how Yujin has a tasty leg. Instead of getting scared, Yujin is angry at Dakebi and scolds him. He reminds him that the bet is to scare and not kill him. The Dakebi floats away, saying he never thought Yujin would fall easily. Yujin scolds the Dakebi more. He lectures how Dakebi shouldn't underestimate how weak F-rankers are. And this marks the second failed attempt. The skill is a big cheat. If it was me, I would have screamed my heart out. The Dakebi chooses a dark rainy night for his last attempt in scaring Yujin. Yujin yawns and decides to have some water as he opens the refrigerator. As he was about to drink, a big bloody straw doll floated in the air. Yujin dryly says wow and comments on how the Dakebi put up much effort in his last attempt. Yujin was about to say how it wouldn't scare him but stopped as he turned his head. He finds a horrifying form clinging to the ceiling with its clawed hands reaching out to him. Yujin only comments that it's a combo attack. Yujin's fear resistance has nullified the fear for Yujin, and Yujin says it was somewhat scary. But he couldn't complete his sentence because Yujin bumped into something else. Is it a 3-hit combo? The figure has shoulder-length hair wearing white and on its hand is a knife. Yujin wonders if it's another of the Dakebi's schemes, then the figure turns around. There was a flash of lightning, and the sky rumbled as it showed the pale figure of Myung-woo holding a knife. I guess not, but this is scary as well. The Dakebi was so shocked that he screamed how there's a real ghost. At the same time, Yujin calmly greets Myung-woo. Myung-woo said he can't sleep, so he came out to sharpen more knives. Yujin looks back at the Dakebi and says he shouldn't be a scaredy cat. The prankster ended up getting pranked. Myung-woo hears Yujin's words and looks at the figure clinging to the corner ceiling. This scene scares Myung-woo into fainting. Wow, they really scared each other. Yujin was worried for Myung-woo, while the Dakebi was confused about what had happened. And that ends the Dakebi's third and final attempt to scare Yujin. The Dakebi lost to Yujin. Our MC got himself a new subordinate. Still wearing a ghost mask, the Dakebi cries his loss and flails around. He complains about how he'll get an earful from his minions for signing a contract on a whim. I'll be your subordinate if it means I can scold you. The Dakebi continues to complain about how he'll be roasted alive. He yells that he won't go back and will just live there with Yujin. I guess his minions are terrifying. The complaining makes Yujin's ears bleed, and he tries to calm the Dakebi. He asks how old the Dakebi is. The other answers that he's over 100 while still crying. Yujin tells Yoon to be serious. Yoon only replies how he really is a Dakebi. Yujin says it's only an act, and there's no way for a real Dakebi to exist. The Dakebi makes his point by saying how dungeons and humans with superpowers exist, and how even Yujin's brother can even breathe fire. That is quite logical. Yujin starts saying that it's the system, then realizes that the Dakebi does have a good point. But seeing this system, he is sure that the Dakebi is also an awakened. Yujin asks if the Dakebi is really not a human. With a sigh, the Dakebi calls Yujin boss, and he starts to glow. He explains that he has existed for over a century. At the same time, he only turned 3 recently. That is kinda confusing. Yujin reckons that the Dakebi refers to the time the system first appeared, meaning he was born then. The Dakebi confirms this. It is said in folklore that Dakebis are created objects with long existence that develop a soul of their own. In Yoon's case, he has been asleep for more than 100 years, and he only woke up when the energy of the dungeon flowed into him. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Jin guesses it was plausible since the Dakebi can teleport, which is somewhat similar to how the system connects their world to some alternate space, but to find an actual Dakebi is incredible. Jin deciphers the Dakebi's name, Yun. The first name stands for the Chinese root character for wheel. Adding the information of how old the Dakebi is, Jin thinks that the Dakebi used to be a wheel of a watermill that belonged to a family called Yun, hence the name Yun. Yu was so surprised and amazed at his new boss and asked if Jin was also a Dakebi and if he used to be a fortune teller's crystal ball. Jin said no and was amazed that he got it right himself, man of many skills and talents. Jin tells Yun to just think that Jin is worthy of being his boss. Then Jin says he has a task for his humble servant, and Yun makes a face at this. Yun drops to the ground and complains that he'll never do boring errands. Jin explains that he needs Yun to investigate the dungeons of other countries since other countries prohibit access to foreigners. But this will be easy for Yun, who has stealth and teleportation skills. This is the real reason why they need Dakebi on their team. Yun lazily lies on the floor and asks why they should do this. Jin smiles and says that Yun will become a more incredible hero with this. Jin explains that gathering data on dungeons would help determine how they are created. This information would prevent more death and destruction from dungeon breaks, meaning it'll save the world. Jin says that this will make Yun the heroic savior of the world. Not only will he be famous, people might also create a line of merchandise for the Dakebi. If their world was the old one, Jin would make lots of money if he worked in sales. Imagining Jin's description made Yun smile with proud satisfaction. Yun stands up and grabs the tablet from Jin with a smile. He starts checking the details on the tablet and asks if he really needs to go to other countries. Jin asks if Yun can't just teleport, and Yun explains he can't teleport that far. Jin remembers that Yun has only unlocked the S-rank skill, Who Am I?, and the B-rank skill, Cloud Steps. With these thoughts, Jin makes a decision. He calls the Dakebi, and with a straight face, he says, "I love you." He's an opportunist, albeit a good one. Jin thinks he should help Yun level up until he unlocks that skill. Yun is startled at first, but then he yells at Jin. Jin makes an excuse for how Dakebis thrive on love, so Yun should get used to loving. Yun looks at Jin dubiously. With sparkling eyes and a flowery tone, Jin says they should start greeting each other like that. He says, "I love you, Yun," and asks Yun to do the same. Yun is shaking as he tries to say it, but he is so hesitant that he says bye and poofs out of there. It's either Yun is shy or traumatized by this display of affection. Jin was slightly disappointed but still looked forward to working with his beloved servant. It's another new day for our MC. The door opens, and Heian and Shimyeon burst through it. The two were so happy as they claimed that Jin was right. Jin was wearing equipment and taking care of Peace at that time. But he was suddenly lifted up to the air by Shimyeon as he happily announced that it was indeed a slime dungeon. Jin was surprised by this, while Peace remained on the floor, shocked to find his owner taken away from him. Shimyeon continues, saying he had doubts, but they hit the jackpot with this dungeon. Peace became angry at them. Jin yells to be put down and tries to calm Peace simultaneously. "Don't anger our cute Peace." Shimyeon is so happy that the Heian Guild has a new cash cow. Slime is considered to be a costly raw material. This means the guild wouldn't have to worry about budget anymore. Shimyeon and Heian have incredibly happy, blushing faces as they look at Jin. They look like a fanboy and a fangirl meeting face-to-face with their idol. Shimyeon claims that Jin is a national treasure, making Jin feel a bit creeped out. Heian says she has decided to accept Jin's offer and will try her best. Jin was glad to hear this. Then Shimyeon says he will place a tracker on Jin for safety, but Jin immediately rejects it. Shimyeon's getting creepier by the second. Jin says he already has an overprotective brother to deal with. Pissed, Jin holds Peace out and commands to attack Shimyeon, and Peace starts hissing at Shimyeon. Our Peace is adorable even when he's hissing. Shimyeon reasons they can't let a treasured asset like him be unprotected. Jin holds on and irked Peace as he tells Shimyeon he's no prophet. He urges Shimyeon to support Dr. Heian's research instead, which will help provide the predictive analysis of dungeons. Jin then runs off with Peace as he shouts that he's only a monster breeder. Jin thinks that he only wants a quiet, comfy life. He really is trying to make his promise from before come true. While his prediction may have been right this time, things could still change, and he doesn't want to be exposed as a liar. Shimyeon and Heian look at Jin's disappearing figure. Heian then praises Jin for being a true scholar. At the same time, Ximiang says Yujin is a humble man who cares more deeply about the guild than anyone. They are not only fooled but also letting the misunderstanding grow. A maze is showcased, and an announcer says the pet must escape this maze. It is complex for pets and filled with toys and mirrors that distract and confuse them. The host continues to explain that it would take at least 3 minutes for trained cats and dogs to escape it. Peace walks through the maze, and the host wonders how long it would take for a horned flame lion to escape. Oh, so the maze was for Peace. I was confused there for a second. Peace quickly makes his way out before the explanation of the challenge is even finished. Looking all cute, Peace jumps into Yujin's arms, and Yujin praises him. The host declares it's a new record, proving how these high-rank monsters are more intelligent. Everyone in the studio was amazed and found the whole experience so admirable, as they clapped their hands for both Peace and Yujin. Yujin says his thanks to everyone. So why the sudden TV appearance? Let's have a short flashback. Ximiang says that Yujin should be on TV for the Hunter Files series. Yujin was skeptical and asked why. Ximiang explains that it is to make Yujin famous. He knows that it would be hard to hide Yujin from the public, so it would be best to make Yujin famous instead. By becoming famous, Yujin's safety will be better ensured if everyone knows him. Now, let's go back to the present. Yujin was persuaded by the logic of director Siak to appear in the show, and Yerim also accompanied him as a bodyguard. Yujin really doesn't like it because it invokes terrible memories from his past life, and he wonders if people will talk trash again. He thinks these bad thoughts as he plays with the very lovable Peace. The people around him are smitten with how cute Peace is, and the host comments how they have never seen such a darling magic beast. The host is so happy that she says it's definitely the highlight of her career. Yujin is glad of the compliment that he smirks. Yujin finally admits this is the best decision ever as he plays with Peace in front of the cameras. I hope this helps him recover from his bad experience with Amiya before. They are finally taking a break, and Yujin is satisfied with how things turned out since he could show off Peace to everyone. Knowing that everyone else also finds Peace cute, Yujin thinks it's a crime not to share this cuteness overload. He remembers how some people there have suggested that Yujin should start a social media account and upload Peace's pics. Peace would be an instant online sensation. Yujin considers this and wonders if he should also sell some merch or even produce an album of Peace. He looks far into the future when Peace will be fully grown and become a world star. At that time, Yujin will be its manager, and he'll be famous as a monster tamer. Maybe we should count how many times Yujin daydreams in this manhwa. Yujin relaxes in his chair and says people should fall in line to have Peace's autograph. A person with long hair says yes, and that she'll be the first in line. Yujin looked at the person who just spoke, and it was Hyuna, the guild master of the Breaker Guild. Hyuna looks down at Yujin and asks if the autograph will be a paw print. Paw print sounds like a great idea. Let's have it embedded in plaster or cement. Yujin and Peace's eyes bulge with surprise at seeing Hyuna. Yujin falls off his chair with a crash, and Hyuna greets him and asks how the young master Haiyan is doing. Still shocked, Yujin asks why Hyuna is there, while Peace hisses at her. Hyuna explains that having at least 3 A-rank hunters is required when shooting a show with monsters, so she volunteers to catch up with Yujin simultaneously. It is obviously an excuse. Hyuna reaches out to help Yujin while the people around them talk about Hyuna's appearance in the studio. Yujin stands up on his own, thinking about how the spotlight was stolen from him. Hyuna is surprised that Yujin didn't take her hand and asks if she should have swept him off his feet like a princess. Yujin immediately rejects the idea and says they should avoid getting tangled in rumors. Hyuna pats Yujin on the shoulder and says she doesn't care, since Yujin will be her breeding partner. This makes the people around them gasp and murmur. Yujin was horrified and yelled that those are the exact words they should not say in public. That term is definitely misleading. Hyuna pats Yujin's shoulders with both hands, saying she really likes Yujin, and again extends an invitation to have him work for her. Yujin picked up Peace and expressed his indignation, reminding her she could only make the offer if she became the world's best. This is one tall order for him to join a guild other than his brothers. Hyuna once again compliments how Yujin never gets intimidated. Yujin says is unthinkable, since he has a brother who is also an S rank and how they are all only human at the end of the day. Hyuna smiles at this and again holds onto Yujin's shoulder, and Peace is alarmed by this. Hyuna says she appreciates the philosophy, but it concerns her a bit. Yerim runs towards them with drinks, but before she even gets near, a blast of wind is raised between them. Yerim tries to reach for Yujin but is unable to do so. Hyuna looks at Yerim and says she'll only borrow Yujin for 5 minutes. Yujin is exasperated by this show of power, while Peace is shocked at what happened. Yujin surmises that Hyuna has set up a barrier with the stagnant air. Peace becomes angry and growls at Hyuna. With an angry Peace in his arms, Yujin asks Hyuna what she did. Hyuna smiles, saying she set up a sound barrier with a simple tweak of her skill, and tells him not to worry since her staff will explain things to Yerim. Yujin wonders if it really was a simple tweak. He knows that Hyuna has already mastered her skills at this time, so a new S ranker like Yerim can't do anything against Hyuna. Hyuna says that they can finally talk in private. Yujin asked what it was about while Peace was still irked in his lap. Hyuna says she just wants to be careful when talking trash about someone like Yujin's little brother. Yes, she set up a barrier just to talk behind Yuyun. I think it's a waste of MP. This statement makes Yujin pause. Hyuna says she's worried that Yujin doesn't really know his own brother. She looks at Yujin and comments that he is already agitated when she hasn't said anything yet. Yujin glares at Hyuna, obvious that he doesn't want to hear any trash talk about his brother. Peace hisses at Hyuna, and Hyuna says to relax since she doesn't mean any harm. She's also smitten with Peace. Hyuna swears she's not there to drive a wedge between the brothers. Patting Yujin's shoulder, she advises Yujin to reevaluate his opinion of his beloved brother. She admits that they all laughed back in the conference because they thought the words from Yujin's mouth were ridiculous. She says that Yujin can't ignore this if he really wants to get into that kind of business. She asks if Yujin really has a lot of faith in his brother and if the excellent baby brother really became a guild master simply because he was capable. Hyuna is skeptical at how an orphaned kid grows into a sweet young man because of a loving older brother despite the poverty and hardship. Hyuna says it's so unrealistic. It may seem unrealistic, but she really shouldn't butt in. Yujin starts to talk back, but Hyuna says that Yujin really thinks Yuyum is an angel. She asserts that there is something that Yujin doesn't realize. Angels can't stomp on others to build their guild. She then asks Yujin if he wants her to tell him what kind of life his brother led as a hunter. I think Hyuna will tell him whether he wants to hear it or not. Let's continue the story with a flashback from the Breaker Guild master. Hyuna was a former athlete, ever since she awakened. She was disqualified from any competitive sports, hence she became a guild master instead. She doesn't know much about managing a guild, so the corporate sponsor ran it. And among the country's top 5 guilds, only 2 guild masters are truly in charge of their own guilds. These were Hyunji Sum of the Sejong Guild and Yu Yun Han of the Heian Guild. Yu Yun has rejected offers from big companies and has built an independent guild. He was viewed as a kid since he was only a high schooler then. At the same time, everyone is after Yu Yun, and some of them even attempt to poison the young man. They're great examples of self-made men. Hyuna admits that she was naive back when she intervened when she heard about an attempt on Yu Yun's life. Hyuna decides to go and save Yu Yun since he's only a minor. But what welcomed her is far from what she expects. The whole place is burning. Dark remains are left on the ground. And Hyuna even thought there was a monster attack. She's really the type who worries about others. A man screams for mercy, and Hyuna turns her head. She finds Yu Yun looming over a man. The man swears that he won't do it again and they will leave Yu Yun alone. But Yu Yun was having none of it. It was extermination. Hyuna walks to Yu Yun and asks if he's okay. However, Yu Yun is still wary of his surroundings that he attacks Hyuna. Hyuna manages to block it and says she was stupid for worrying when Yu Yun obviously isn't an ordinary kid. Hyuna even thinks that Yu Yun is not even human anymore because rage has filled Yu Yun's complete being at that time. You really can't blame him, he almost died from poison. Hyuna says the incident was covered up and anyone involved disappeared. She finishes her story by saying that Yu Yun took down those calling shots and took their resources. Those were then used to build the Heian Guild. Yujin looks at Hyuna with shock, while Peace glares at the guild master. Hyuna says it may be hard to believe, but this is how the world of S-rankers works. Hyuna knows that Yujin and Yu Yun used to live apart, and asks if Yujin didn't notice how his brother has changed. Yujin only looks away at this. I think Yujin is more sad that he wasn't there for his brother rather than being scared of what he learned. Hyuna once again pats Yujin's shoulder and advises him to look at the matter with open eyes, because Yu Yun isn't who Yujin thinks he is. From Hyuna's experience, Yu Yun is a monster. Yu Yun may only be pretending to be a docile little brother, and he might bare his fangs at Yujin one day. She says it is unsafe for Yujin to stay close to Yu Yun, as a phone vibrates in her pocket. Hyuna takes the phone from her pocket and looks at it. The name on the phone says Jerkwad number 2 is calling her. Hyuna says it is Yu Yun. I'm betting Jerkwad number 1 is Hyunjae. Hyuna looks at Yujin and asks if he wants to keep his distance from his brother. If he does, she is willing to give Yu-jin a hand. Yu-jin mumbles how Yu-yoon has gone through hell as well. Yu-jin sadly grabs the phone in Hyuna's hand, shocking her. Yu-jin answers the call, and Yu-yoon immediately threatens Hyuna Moon, but stops when he hears his brother's voice. Yu-yoon asks if Yu-jin is okay, and if the woman told him anything stupid. Yu-jin thinks that Yu-yoon had to bloody his hands to get to where he is today. Then he answers his brother in an annoyed tone, saying how Hyuna was talking trash about Yu-yoon. I admire their strong relationship. Yu-jin doesn't really care if his brother has done those things before. Though Yu-yoon is acting strange. Yu-jin knows how cruel people can be. Yu-jin himself doesn't have clean hands. He was guilty of surviving all those years while everyone around him died. Yu-jin remembers how Yu-yoon protected him in his past life. After experiencing that, there is no way Yu-jin wouldn't defend his brother. Yu-jin says that Hyuna has underestimated him. He casually talks to his brother about returning the favor by talking trash about Hyuna. He starts mentioning something that happened last year in April. Hyuna became horrified when she heard this from Yu-jin. It was about the most embarrassing moment in Hyuna's life that would be revealed to the country in 4 years. An eye for an eye, Hyuna can't just bully the MC's lil bro without experiencing something bad in return. Yu-jin continues that it was around 5 p.m. on April 2 at the CS convenience store in Icheon, Gyeonggi Province. Before Yu-jin can tell everything about it, Hyuna snatches the phone from him and crushes it with her bare hands. Now I'm curious about what really happened. Red in the face, Hyuna glares at Yu-jin and asks how he knows about it. She starts shaking Yu-jin, trying to make him talk. Peace is enraged at this, while Yu-jin is calm and says he just heard it somewhere. Hyuna threatens Yu-jin, making Peace hiss in anger, but still calm. Yu-jin dares her and says she won't have any super special mount. Yu-jin smirks at Hyuna and tells her she shouldn't have talked about his brother that way. He says this even though he is still in Hyuna's clutches. Hyuna is angered, but she knows that Yu-jin has a point. I hope Yu-yoon looks it up so we may also know the deets. She lets Yu-jin go with a sigh and says that she should have realized how the apple really doesn't fall far from the tree. Yu-jin thinks about how everyone will learn the truth anyway as he takes Peace from the ground. With a snap, Hyuna released the barrier, saying that she thought Yu-jin would be different from Yu-yoon. So she tried. She's at least relieved that there's nothing to worry about if the other guild masters approach Yu-jin. Yu-jin wonders if Hyuna is trying to warn him while Peace continues to leer at Hyuna. Yerim sadly yells and complains at Hyuna. Yu-jin reassures Yerim that he's okay while Hyuna pats Yu-jin's back, saying it was just adult talk. She whispers to Yu-jin that he better not utter a word about that. Hyuna makes it sound different. Yerim sees this and headbutts Hyuna's stomach, thinking that Hyuna is threatening Yu-jin. Everything else in the studio is as normal as the two S-rank bickers. A staff tells Yu-jin that the shoot will resume in 5 minutes and hands him water. Yu-jin looks at the two, wondering when they got so close, and if it is because they are the only female S-rank hunters in the country. Yu-jin looks at the scene where Hyuna playfully grapples Yerim. Yu-jin ponders if Yerim will go to the Breaker Guild once her contract with Heian ends. I doubt she will. She'll definitely be following you around. Yu-jin thinks back to how the Breaker Guild wouldn't last long, because Hyuna doesn't like taking orders. The same goes for Sukwon Choi of the MKC Guild. Yu-jin feeds water to Peace as he thinks if he should recruit Hyuna to their side instead, since she would make a powerful pair with Yerim. Another reason is that he needs to have more S-rankers under his influence. Yep, 50 slots must be filled. So far, the only S-ranks Yu-jin has influence over are Yu-yoon and Yerim. There are 48 to go. Yu-jin speculates whether Hyuna would be a better mentor for Yerim rather than him. He sadly hears Yerim saying that Yu-jin is not just Hyuna's breeding partner, since Yu-jin will also help Yerim breed. The water from Yu-jin's mouth fell out when he heard this. He immediately shouts at Yerim to get away from Hyuna, since Hyuna is obviously a bad influence on her. People around them were murmuring about how Yerim was a minor. That was embarrassing. At home, the TV show Hunter Files airs the story of Yu-jin and labels him Monster Daddy. Yerim makes fun of Yu-jin, while Yu-jin droops, thinking he told them it should be Monster Tamer. Myeong-woo comforts Yu-jin, saying that he is now famous. With a title like Monster Daddy, everyone will now associate that name with Yu-jin Han. He's the dad of everyone. Yu-jin and Myeong-woo are walking in the hall, carrying knives that need sharpening. Myeong-woo is amazed that he is being lent a workspace in the armory. Yu-jin says he asked a favor from the guild, since he can't have Myeong-woo sharpen knives in the kitchen every night. Myeong-woo reflects on how he scared Yu-jin's friend then and how he passed out later. Myeong-woo refers to Yoon-yoon, the dokkeibi. Yujin claimed that Dakibi was a friend who was only visiting. Yeah, a friend who visits late on a rainy night. It's a wonder why Myung-woo didn't find it sus. Yujin says it would be nice if Myung-woo gets to know the people in the armory, since they might work together. Myung-woo admits he wouldn't want to go on more raids, so this is an excellent opportunity. Yujin agrees since Myung-woo is not exactly built for combat. Yujin hums as he thinks that Myung-woo will soon become an SS-ranked blacksmith, so the armory is the better fit for him. I'm guessing the stats will be the same, but the skills will be SS. Kinda similar to how Yujin is an F rank with L rank and S rank skills. Yujin and Myung-woo reached the armory of Haeim Guild, and they were welcomed by the heat. The armory is a large place with people working on various things. Yujin and Myung-woo walk in, and Myung-woo sees a large chunk of mana stone in one area. He was about to touch it when he was suddenly stopped by one of the workers there. The staff asks them if they are authorized to be in that area. Yujin simply smiles at the man and asks if HR has contacted them about lending a workspace for his friend. The man then recognizes them and bows as a greeting. He says they received word that his friend has a grinding stone skill. Yujin looks at the man's size and wonders if Myung-woo could become a blacksmith. Myung-woo's body will probably become fitter once he's used to doing these things. The staff then leads them and asks if Myung-woo has used a blade sharpener before. Myung-woo says that he did as a kid. Myung-woo was amazed to find an industrial blade sharpener and looked at it closely. He is excited and gushes about how the machine can work for you with just a few commands. The staff says it is for the staff, so Myung-woo can't really touch them. He then leads Myung-woo to a room, saying they'll be his workspace. Myung-woo and Yujin go inside and finds a shabby room filled with scraps and some old tools. The staff says that the blade sharpener can be used by Myung-woo. Though it is usable, the blade sharpener is obviously musty. Wow. I can't believe they're stingy. The staff leaves them to it, leaving Yujin shocked. Yujin tries to call the man back and asks if he is joking. Myung-woo stops Yujin and says it's okay. The workers in the armory glare at them, and they start hearing the whispers of how that guy used his connections when they go even higher F-Class Awakened. Another mentions that they must cater to nepotism despite things being hectic. Myung-woo says Yujin can't blame them because, from their perspective, Myung-woo must have pulled some strings to be there. Myung-woo smiles at Yujin and says he is glad he can work using a professional tool and will do his best. Myung-woo is really tender-hearted. Yujin feels terrible about this, but Myung-woo keeps a positive outlook. Myung-woo pulls on a chair before the blade sharpener to get started. Yujin asks if Myung-woo is okay since it has been a long time since Myung-woo used a tool like this. Myung-woo says he'll try it as he takes one of the dull knives and starts the blade sharpener using a foot controller. Myung-woo and Yujin were glad it was working, and Myung-woo started grinding the blade. Yujin is amazed and confirms that using a tool like this still counts in unlocking this skill. Myung-woo checks the knife and says it'll work. Yujin thinks it is better that Myung-woo uses a manual tool like this instead of the big machine outside to unlock his skill. It'll also help Myung-woo get better in the actual process. Myung-woo is feeling happy. He ties his hair up and starts grinding more knives. Yujin tells Myung-woo to be careful, but he stops himself when he sees how Myung-woo quickly finishes sharpening one knife after another. Yujin had never seen Myung-woo this focused before. Myung-woo looks really cool as he works. Yujin remembers how Myung-woo is a crybaby who is easily scared and intimidated. Seeing Myung-woo focused and at ease in what he's doing is far from how he usually is. Yujin's alarm goes off, pulling him back to reality. He says goodbye to Myung-woo, since he needs to train peace. Myung-woo looks up, realizing that Yujin is still there. Yujin admits he got engrossed in watching Myung-woo work. Myung-woo apologizes for taking up Yujin's time and asks if Yujin wants to be walked out. Yujin reassures Myung-woo that he'll be fine, and that they'll just see each other at home. Yujin leaves and realizes how he can't stop watching Myung-woo work. He compares Myung-woo to a fish out of water that finally managed to return to his own domain and is now swimming freely. Yujin is sure that Myung-woo was born to do this, and that he doesn't have to worry about him. Or so Yujin thought, because the next day, Myung-woo is lying face down in bed with many pain relief patches on him. Myung-woo groans about how it's only been a day, but he's already hopeless. While Yujin puts on more patches on Myung-woo to help him get better, Myung-woo had to take a day off because he was sore all over. In the armory, a female staff comments about how that guy didn't show up today. Another staff says that the string puller called in sick. The female staff laughs at this and says he must be faking it. She thinks the guy must have thought it's a cushy job since he got in by connections, but after a day, he's given up on how hard it is. Another asks if someone wanting a relaxing job can pull that off, making another ask him to pull off what? The staff says that there are 1,000 knives, and the string puller has sharpened all of them in one day. Wow! Myung-woo said before that he'll sharpen 100 knives daily, but he surpassed himself this time. A staff looks inside Myung-woo's workspace, and he finds hundreds of newly sharpened knives in boxes there. As this happened, Myung-woo was lying in bed, sad that he can't do any work today. You should pace yourself better, Myung-woo. A week later, Myung-woo's workspace is now filled with boxes of knives. The armory staff is looking at Myung-woo with amazement. His current progress is now at 5,600 out of 10,000. You're halfway there. A hearty meal is on the table, and Yoo-jin asks if Myung-woo's sharpening blades have also sharpened his cooking skills. Yerim is so amazed at all the food before her that she asks to live happily ever after with Myung-woo, and starts referring to him as Upa. Yerim cries as she eats, while Yoo-jin asks if Yerim seriously just called Myung-woo Upa. You should up your game, Yoo-jin. You're still being referred to as Ajersi by Yerim. Yerim continues eating and says that she needs to eat up since she can't have this kind of stuff in the dungeon. Yoo-jin remembers that Yerim has a raid that day. Yerim complains that it is so dull that she has to go to B-rank dungeons because she's only a minor. But she has to do it since she wants to level up, get new skills, and get rich. She wonders out loud if she should go on raids every day and use all her skills to clear dungeons. Yoo-jin warns her about this, explaining how easy it is to tell when the health is low, but it is not the same with mana. Yoo-jin patiently explains that Yerim wouldn't want to run out of mana in the middle of a dungeon and pass out. The system doesn't show an HP and MP bar, so hunters must be wary of this. Yoo-jin starts explaining MP potions, but then asks how much mana Yerim has. Yerim answers 102, making Yoo-jin feel incompetent with his base MP of 2. With an additional 29 from his equipment, Yoo-jin forgot about explaining and starts brooding at how Yerim's MP is 51 times his and still 5 times more if he counts his equipment. He laments how he is in no position to worry about her. Yerim just ignores this and looks at Myung-woo. Calling him Upa, she asks when Myung-woo will go on his next raid. Yerim suggests that Myung-woo should join as a chef and he'll be rich in no time. Myung-woo laughs at this, saying that he's not sure. Myung-woo can't say it straight that he doesn't want to enter dungeons anymore. Yoo-jin looks at Myung-woo's worn-out hands and asks Myung-woo if he's not pushing himself too much with the daily grinding and cooking. Myung-woo assures Yoo-jin that he's having a great time. Still concerned, Yoo-jin hands his gloves to Myung-woo and says he should use them. Myung-woo asks if it's okay, since these are expensive and an A-grade item. Yoo-jin makes an excuse that he hardly uses them, since it's hot, and tells Myung-woo to use them until he's done with his knife grinding. Myung-woo tears up at this and squeezes Yoo-jin. He thanks Yoo-jin and promises to never take the gloves off. Yoo-jin is shocked and tells Myung-woo to get off. Yoo-jin also reminds Myung-woo to at least take them off when he goes to the bathroom. That's gross. Although it took time, the people in the armory started to warm up to Myung-woo. One afternoon, he was feeling hot, and one of the staff gave him a towel laced with mana stone to help him maintain his body temperature. Yo, we need that kind of stuff for summer. The staff says it gets really hot in the armory, and Myung-woo is thankful for it. One night, Myung-woo finished late. He went out of his workspace and finds that everyone is gone. He sees the mana stone he was looking at before and looks closer. Myung-woo is amazed at how it can glow on its own. Yeah, it'll make the perfect night lamp. A voice shouts that he can't touch it, spooking Myung-woo upright. Myung-woo turns, saying he didn't touch it, and realizes it was the staff from when he first got in. The man explains it is an S-rank mana stone that can fetch at least 1 billion won. That's more than $760,000. I'll just buy myself a lamp from IKEA. Myung-woo was so shocked to hear this. The staff continues to explain how fully intact stones of this size are rare. The armory has left it as is for now, since they're not sure what's best to do with it. He says it's disappointing that even with a big armory crew, they don't have anyone to handle a beauty like this. The man softly knocks down the mana stone as he says this. Myung-woo's not allowed to touch it, but the staff obviously can. He says he did not mean to offend him, but an F-ranker like Myung-woo can never even attempt anything on the mana stone. The staff then changes the subject and asks if the other staff are still giving him grief for getting into the armory using connections. Myung-woo stammers a no, but the other man only continues to explain how this place is run on meritocracy. Many people must prove themselves skilled to be accepted. Myung-woo scratches his head and accepts this. The man then says that some people need the chance to shine in life. He compares it to a diamond in the rough that hasn't been polished. Myung-woo looks up at this and the man reveals that he knows that Myung-woo even sharpened the crew's tools and that they look brand new. He's really been outdoing himself every day. He compliments Myung-woo for his diligence. The man wants Myung-woo to prove him wrong. If Myung-woo really wants to get in, he must prove that he didn't get in because he pulled strings. Even if Myung-woo doesn't have enough strength stats, gears can overcome this. Myung-woo says he will try his best and smiles at the man. Things were finally moving on smoothly until one particular moment. A door slams open and a female staff asks for Hunter Myung-woo. The female staff member has a worried look on her face and asks for Myung-woo to come with her. She says that they need to investigate the disappearance of Hunter Yoo-jin Han. What? Yoo-jin's missing? A particular little bro will blow up at this. Myung-woo's face paled when he heard this. With disbelief, Myung-woo asks if he heard it right and if Yoo-jin is missing. Myung-woo asks what they mean because he knows for a fact that Yoo-jin will be at the guild the whole day. Yoo-jin didn't even receive any calls from anyone suspicious. The one confirms if they can rule out Yoo-jin purposely getting off the grid. This would make one wonder if Yoo-jin did purposely get off the grid. Yerim suddenly bursts into the room and asks where Yoo-jin is. Myung-woo is surprised at Yerim's appearance, since he knows that Yerim has a scheduled raid for today. Yerim says she was on the way there, but returned when she heard the news. Another staff leads Yerim to where the guild master is, and they all start leaving Myung-woo. Myung-woo stops them and asks if there's anything he can do. One of the staff says that it would be best for Myung-woo to stay there for his own safety, and he respectfully says there's not much he can do in the situation. The reality dismays Myung-woo, and he can't do anything about it. It's the truth, but it still hurts to hear it. So what really happened to Yoo-jin? A few hours ago, Yoo-jin was relaxing, since everything he had hoped for was now slowly coming true. He has nothing to worry about anymore except that Peace has thrashed the place, even the couch. Peace purrs and starts tugging at Yoo-jin's head. Understanding how Peace feels cooped up there for too long, he decides to head down and train with Peace. He opens the door and sees a man. He tells the man that they'll be stepping out for a bit. If Yoo-jin was taken, this guy would be suspect number one. For Yoo-jin, having a bodyguard feels like an overkill. After negotiating with the top guilds, everyone agreed to take turns sending bodyguards for Yoo-jin. Yoo-jin believes the guilds are only trying to win him over in the pretense of protection. Oh, it's for Yoo-jin's protection. I guess this is how those guilds are ensuring Yoo-jin's safety. Yoo-jin looks at the current bodyguard with his skill and learns that the man is a B ranker from the MKC guild. The man contacts another person in his earpiece, then asks if Yoo-jin will go to the training room as they enter the elevator. Yoo-jin says they're heading to the second basement floor. Peace goes over his shoulder and presses the B2 button on the wall. This shocks Yoo-jin, and he starts complimenting Peace for being clever. We all need intelligent Peace in our life. He proudly shows off Peace to the current bodyguard, but the man ignores him completely. Feeling embarrassed, Yoo-jin falls silent and just picks Peace up. Yoo-jin is surprised this bodyguard is not amazed by Peace. He remembers how the bodyguard yesterday was fawning at Peace. Yoo-jin concludes that not everyone has to like Peace. No, that man is sus. Who wouldn't like Peace? The elevator door opens, and other people in red suits get in. One of the guys in the red suit apologizes for the big luggage. Yoo-jin says it's okay. Then he uses his promising sprout skill on them to check their ranks. He identifies that the men are low-ranked to be working for Haeyeon. Now we have our suspect number 2. It kinda adds up since they can overpower Yoo-jin with their number. A bit suspicious, Yoo-jin asks them if they're from another guild. One of them answers that they're from the Bricks Guild, a subsidiary of Haeyeon. He explains they're there to borrow the training room and test some of their items. He even makes a point of saying that they passed the security check and they're not suspicious. It's more suspicious that you'll claim you're not. Everyone laughs at this while Yoo-jin joins them, saying they aren't. They reach the second basement, and everyone gets out, with the men in red heading to a different room. Yoo-jin thinks those guys were suspicious as he, and his bodyguard head in the opposite direction. Yoo-jin glares as he believes they're suspicious because none of them complimented Peace's cuteness. Disregarding this, Yoo-jin just concludes that not everyone would be comfortable with a magic beast around, no matter how cute it may be. No, Yoo-jin, they're also sus. I just can't wrap my head around how some people would find such rare cuteness and not comment. Reaching one of the training rooms, Yoo-jin lets Peace roam. Peace immediately takes a tied rope and looks at Yoo-jin, acting all cute. Yoo-jin smiles, commenting on how Peace wants to play tug, but Yoo-jin says he has to get ready. Yeah, it's the tug of death. You have to get prepared. Unbeknownst to Yu Jin, the men in red from before are now behind him. They are holding a rope and a bottle with some weird substance in it. It was right to be suspicious. Yu Jin turned his head and a red powder was thrown to his and Peace's way. The system tells him that it is the Watchman's fruit and his poison resistance activates, canceling the effects of the item. Peace was surprised at this, and he inhaled some of the powder. He growls, but then he plops down with a whimper. Yu Jin screams for peace, but one of the men clasps a handkerchief to his nose and mouth. The men in red are surprised that Yu Jin is still awake. One of them says it might be a piece of equipment. Yu Jin realizes that those were the men from Brick's guild. He fights back by kicking the man in front of him. He wonders how they got in, and he manages to escape these men. One of them is so surprised, commenting on how Yu Jin was supposed to be an F-ranker. He's a pay-to-win F-ranker. Yu Jin makes it to the door and finds his bodyguard just outside. He yells for help, but the bodyguard punches him instead. The bodyguard tells the others to get it together and says that Yu Jin must have some fancy equipment that he got from his brother. He commands them to remove the equipment from Yu Jin. You are absolutely right to be suspicious before Yu Jin. Everyone you come across is out to kidnap you. The man removes Yu Jin's gloves and belt, decreasing his strength and dexterity stats to single digits. He ponders if MKC has betrayed them. Yu Jin tries to focus and looks for a way to escape this situation. The man holding him notices Yu Jin's studs and wonders if those have antidote buffs. The man forcefully removes it from Yu Jin's ears, removing 29 points of his mana. Yu Jin thinks back to how many times he used the Promising Sprout skill. Without the studs, Yu Jin felt weak. Remember the lesson on MP that Yu Jin gave to Yerim before? This is what happens when you lack MP. The men in red are finally relieved that Yu Jin has settled down. They threw Yu Jin and Peace in their big luggage, and they were confident they could get out, since they'd already passed the security when they came in. Before Yu Jin totally passes out, he curses inside. He thinks he should have known that anyone who doesn't find Peace cute is suspicious. Lesson learned. Water splashes on Yu Jin, and he wakes up coughing. His hands were tied, and before him was a thug with some sort of tattoo on his left eye. Yu Jin identifies the guy as a B-ranker named Wooja Kim using his skill. Yu Jin tries to remember anything about the guy, but doesn't recall it from anywhere. Yu Jin thinks that with a B rank, this guy might be the guild master or deputy of a kidnapping guild. Even kidnappers are in a guild now. Wooja stands up and says he feels terrible for bullying a weak F-ranker but wants to immediately get to the point. Wooja yanks on Yu Jin's head and asks Yu Jin to hand over the owner's token of the Horned Flame Lion. Wooja tells Yu Jin that he shouldn't hope for anyone to save him and should just hand the token over. From what the man just said, Yu Jin deduces that they haven't killed Peace yet, and Peace was brought with him. Yu Jin comments on how Wooja is confident for someone who has the top 5 guilds and the Hunters Association after him. The MKC guild is probably behind this. The man is unthreatened and looks at his phone. He shows Yu Jin how his bodyguard had been reporting to Wooja that there were no issues. He informs Yu Jin that his bodyguard is still standing by the training room, and no one knows that Yu Jin has been taken. Wooja is confident they'll never be caught, since they'll be gone by the time they even catch on. Wooja continues to be proud, because their location is on a wharf with thousands of similar containers. Before they even finish searching, they'll already be in Japan. For a kidnapper, he sure likes to let his victim know the kidnapping details. Hearing this information, Yu Jin asks if the Japanese were behind this. Wooja smiles, saying that not precisely. It's just where Yu Jin will be sold for auction. Wooja explains how they'll gain half of the winning bid and a sponsorship package once they turn Yu Jin over. Yu Jin finally understands how they plan to sell them overseas, since they can't do it in Korea, which is the primary purpose of their kidnappers. Yu Jin ponders if he'll be rescued in time. He is sure the guilds and association will get help from the Coast Guard once they learn Yu Jin is gone. The main problem is when he is carried to international waters. At best, Yu Jin must stall them. It really helps that he has fear resistance, which will keep him from panicking. Wooja smirks and tells Yu Jin to just hand over the owner's token. Yu Jin chuckles at this and says that he wouldn't give them the token just like that. Wooja is perplexed, but Yu Jin says that Wooja just let him know how valuable he is, so there's no need to be scared, since they need to get Yu Jin there in one piece. Wooja compliments Yu Jin for being smart. Yu Jin raises a finger and tells Wooja that he just happens to be more stupid and ugly. Yu Jin mocks Wooja that he won't be able to use the token properly even if he has it. Even Yu Yun had a hard time with peace though he had the owner's token before. Wu Jie sadly knees Yu Jin, clearly irritated as he says that Yu Jin doesn't understand his situation. Yu Jin looks up at Wu Jie and tells him that he does. He describes how he has been taken before by thugs with crappy skills. B-rankers like Wu Jie are so common that even a dozen of Wu Jie are nothing compared to Yu Jin. Wu Jie lifts his foot and stomps on Yu Jin. Yu Jin's leg cracks on the impact, making him scream in pain. Wu Jie admits that Yu Jin is too valuable and that he can only go as far as this. You're dead once little bro finds you. Wu Jie continued to step on him, then Yu Jin was suddenly lifted by the collar. In Yu Jin's head, he wants Wu Jie to continue. He doesn't care how hurt he'll be as long as he can buy more time before being sold off. Wu Jie drags Yu Jin and opens a container door. Wu Jie says that he'll introduce Yu Jin to a friend of his. He then throws Yu Jin by a cage. Wu Jie says they also have a pet. Yu Jin asks what Wu Jie means, then a black tentacle slithers to Yu Jin, making him scream in shock. Wu Jie smirks, commenting on how Yu Jin is finally getting scared. I doubt Yu Jin is worried. The black tentacle belongs to a monster with yellow eyes. Wu Jie explains that the magic beast is Creek, a C-rank dungeon monster cursing its prey with poison in its tentacles. Once affected, people will end up drooling or crawling for half an hour. Wu Jie says Yu Jin will still be in good shape to be sold, so he doesn't have to worry. This kidnapper likes to explain things in detail. Wu Jie pushes the container door to a close, saying that he'll give them some privacy for 30 minutes. And the door completely shuts, leaving Yu Jin in darkness, that they'll buy him some time somehow. In Haiyan Guild, Yerim slams a door open and approaches Yu Yun, who is wiping his hands. Yu Yun says that MKC has reached out, but Yerim yanks on Yu Yun's clothes, demanding an explanation. Yerim is angry as she asks how Yu Yun claimed that Haiyan has the best security and no harm would come to Yu Jin. So how did something like this happen? I'm sure Yu Yun is only calm on the surface. He's definitely angry. Delby's not showing it. Yu Yun says that it wouldn't have happened in normal circumstances. He explains how subordinates of S-rankers who experienced dungeon raids together wouldn't betray their bosses, especially if the dungeon they raided was an S-rank. He compares this to how wild animals submit to their alphas to survive. Hunters are also instinctively bound to their superiors. It's a hunter thing. Yu Yun says that the hunters appointed to be Yu Jin's bodyguards are direct subordinates of guild masters. But what happened today is different. The bodyguard sent by MKC isn't the one who they were supposed to send. Someone in MKC squawked it at the last minute. Yu Yun continues to explain how MKC is run by influential, unawakened individuals, so the power structure is split into two. It was the sponsors who schemed to take advantage of the situation. And this just shows how Sukwon has little control over his guild. This is probably what Yu Jin was referring to before from Chapter 33, when he mentioned how Breaker Guild and MKC won't last long. Though it's happening earlier this time. Yu Yun admits how he knew that the two factions were about to clash. He didn't expect one faction to partner with a subsidiary of Haiyan Do. He also confesses that these people used low-rank hunters, but he should have been more cautious, since Yu Jin is an F rank, making him not safe from anyone. Yerim gets to the point and asks what the MKC guildmaster said and where Yu Jin is kept. Yu Yun says it is why he called for her, as he removes the hand on his clothes. Yu Yun confirms if Yerim can use White Corpse. The White Corpse is Yerim's skill that can collect information from dead bodies. It was first mentioned in Chapter 14. Yerim's eyes leer at this, and she comments on how it smells like blood in that place. She asks if the guy is in the room and if it's the dead bodyguard's memories. Yu Yun confirms and instructs Yerim to learn where they might be keeping Yu Jin. Yu Yun opens the room door and says that he has informed MKC that Haiyan will be taking care of the bodyguard. Yerim comments on how this would be more reliable than making the guy talk. Yu Yun warns Yerim that Yu Jin must never know about this. Yerim agrees as she passes Yu Yun. They always seem to compromise when it comes to Yu Jin's safety. Back in the wharf, Wu Jie looks at his phone. He is wondering why the bodyguards stopped texting him. He wonders if they were already found out. Wu Jie dismisses it and focuses on getting the token, even if they fail the operation. He means that even if Yu Jin dies, their priority is the Horned Flame Lion, so they'll still make a fortune. Wu Jie opens the container door and happily asks if Yu Jin had a lovely time. He finds Yu Jin lying face down on the floor. He taps Yu Jin with his foot and wonders why Yu Jin passed out when the curse doesn't have that effect. Yu Jin lifts his head and Wu Jie laughs. Wu Jie asks if Yu Jin fainted from all his screaming and kicking. Yujin mumbles and Wujie asks what he's saying. Yujin calls for Inky to do it now. The creek from before is now sticking atop the door behind Wujie. Wujie smirks, asking who Inky is, and he is suddenly attacked by the creek. Ha! Yujin has influenced Creek. Wujie manages to avoid at first, but Inky's tentacle catches his arm. With disbelief, he looks at Yujin, who caresses Inky's face. Wujie screams at how they were informed that Yujin can only tame infant monsters. Yujin smiles as he says that it is normal for hunters to never reveal the true extent of their skills. And with that, Yujin commands Inky to bite the evil man. New pet acquired.